From the very beginning of our species, we've been in a constant fight with an enemy we can't even see. So today, we're going to dive into how these tiny, microscopic pathogens haven't just made us sick, they've actually shaped the entire course of human history.
Okay, so let me ask you something. What do you think is humanity's deadliest killer? I mean, throughout all of history. You're probably thinking wars, right? Or maybe famines or giant natural disasters. Well, the real answer? It's probably not what you think. Yep, it's invisible pathogens, these tiny, tiny microorganisms. It's kind of wild to think about, but the illnesses they cause have killed more of us than literally anything else, ever. They are the silent villain in the story of humanity. But here's where it gets really interesting. This whole story isn't just about us versus some ancient germs. There's this weird paradox at the heart of it all, and it's that our greatest achievements, our biggest steps forward as a species, have often, unintentionally, opened up brand new ways for diseases to get to us.
And that's really the core idea we're going to explore. It's like every time we solve a big problem, like hunger or being isolated, we've accidentally rolled out the red carpet for some other, sometimes even worse, illness. So, let's break down how this actually happened.
So let's go way back. We'll start with early hunter-gatherers. They lived in these small groups and they were always on the move, right? Now, it's not like they were perfectly healthy. We found evidence of things like TB in their skeletons. But because they were nomadic, big widespread epidemics just couldn't happen. The diseases would basically burn out.
And then everything changed. We made one of our biggest breakthroughs ever, agriculture. Around 12,000 years ago, we figured out how to farm. It was this genius solution to the whole "where's our next meal coming from" problem. But this solution had a pretty major, fatal flaw.
This one innovation kicked off a whole chain reaction. First, when you settle down in one place, you suddenly have, sanitation issues. That led to diseases like dysentery. But even bigger was the irrigation we needed for crops. All that standing water, it turned out to be the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. And you know what comes with mosquitoes? Malaria. One of the oldest and deadliest killers in human history.
And guess what? This same pattern just kept repeating itself. Our next huge innovation was building cities. I mean, they were these amazing centers for culture, for trade. But we also accidentally built the perfect incubators for viruses. Our greatest communities became, in a way, deadly traps. Just think about it for a second. In those small, spread-out groups from before, a virus like measles or smallpox would run out of people to infect pretty fast. But in a crowded city? Oh, it's a paradise for a virus. There's always a fresh supply of new hosts, which means the chain of infection can just keep going and going.
And this really gets to the core of the issue. As all these new cities got connected by trade routes, those routes became highways. But they weren't just for moving silk and spices. They were for moving disease. And it was on a scale humanity had never, ever seen before.
Which of course brings us to probably the most infamous pandemic in history, the Black Death. For about 20 years, this one disease just ripped across Asia, Africa, and Europe. It completely changed the world.
And this chart, wow, it just shows you the sheer scale of it all. Just look at that drop. We're talking about the global population falling by more than 100 million people. In some places, the death rate was as high as 75%. It was apocalyptic. There's no other word for it.
But here's the thing. The plague wasn't an equal opportunity killer. Not at all. If you were wealthy, a lord, a rich merchant, you could just pack up and flee to your country estate and wait it out. But if you were poor, you were stuck. This was one of the first really brutal lessons in how deeply disease and inequality are connected.
Okay, so let's fast forward. That pattern, progress, creating new problems, it didn't stop in the Middle Ages. It continued right on into the modern era. The Industrial Revolution, right? It promised this whole new world of prosperity, but it also lit the fuse for another terrifying epidemic.
You had millions of people flooding into cities to work in factories. They were crammed into these awful, overcrowded slums with terrible ventilation. And those conditions, they were absolutely perfect for tuberculosis to just explode. At its peak, TB was killing 1 out of every 4 adults in Europe. And of course, it hit the poorest people, the working class, the hardest.
But then, finally, things started to change. The tide began to turn. In the 20th century, modern medical science really arrived. We got vaccines, we figured out public hygiene, nutrition got better, and we finally had the tools to actually fight back. We even managed to completely eradicate smallpox. I mean, think about that. A monumental victory for humanity.
So that brings us to today. And that lesson we learned from the Black Death, that disease and inequality are linked. It's more true now than ever. The difference is, today we have incredible science. The fight isn't about not knowing what to do anymore. It's about a lack of access. The Great Divide today is all about who can get the treatments and who can't.
Over 600,000. What is that? That's the number of people who still die from malaria every single year. This is a disease we've known about for thousands of years, and we've had effective treatments for decades.
And this chart, it tells you everything you need to know. A staggering 96% of all malaria deaths happen in Africa. So this ancient disease isn't really a global threat anymore. It's become a regional one, and its burden falls almost entirely on communities who just don't have access to the kind of healthcare that so many of us take for granted.
And it's not just malaria. Remember tuberculosis, the big killer from the Industrial Revolution? Well, it's still around, infecting millions of people. And look, it's the same story. Nearly half of all cases are found in Southeast Asia. The pattern here is, well, it's painfully clear.
So all of this leaves us with a really important question. Our entire history shows this cycle, right? We innovate. That creates a new threat, and then science catches up and gives us the tools to fight it. But today the game has changed. We have the tools. The final frontier in this long battle against disease isn't about discovering something new. It's about delivery. It's about access.